welcome to the Pinkbike Podcast. We've got a special edition today with some special guests. I'm Mike Kazimer, and joining me, we've got Clint Spiegel from Industry 9, Dustin Adams from Are One Composites. We also have Brian Park here, and Dean Yobbi from Bicycle Retailer. And we're here because Industry 9 acquired Are One Composites. And there's going to be some questions. I'm going to dig into how this all happened. Clint is actually up in Kamloops, BC, where Are One Composites is based. We're going to figure out what he's doing there, what he thinks of that area, and a lot more. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Good to be here.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, thanks for doing take 2 of this podcast. We did take 1, I don't know, like 5 months ago when we first heard that this might be happening. I reached out to Clint and Dustin, and we recorded a pretty good podcast, I thought, except then the deal fell apart. And we'll get into why. I want to know some stuff there, but it ended up not happening at the time, and our podcast is irrelevant now. It's obsolete, so we're recording another one.
And I wouldn't say the deal fell apart. It was just entered into some difficulties that we had to get past. So although Dustin and I have been in pretty much complete agreement since, I don't know, when did this start? Dustin maybe mentioned
October,
9
I think,
months ago.
24, yeah.
Yeah.
Who knew closing a business took that long?
Yeah, especially when the two owners were in complete agreement the whole time. So there was not negotiations between the two of us, not really. So
should we start with maybe we'll start with some backstory, even go further back as far as Are One's relationship with Industry 9, because that started a while ago before even this acquisition. How did that all begin? The very beginning then, when you started supplying carbon rims, or some of the carbon rims for Industry 9. Start with that part, I think.
Well, I mean, we were a hub customer, obviously, right out of the gate. But I met Jacob McGahee at when was it? 2019, I believe. It was Sea Otter, and they were talking about doing some new rims, and I pitched the idea of us becoming a manufacturer for them, and that's when the partnership really started to kind of come together a little bit tighter, for sure. We had drawn some stuff down on the back of a napkin there, and then had some higher level discussions, and Jacob came up. It wasn't too much longer after that, maybe a month or two after Sea Otter in 19, and we designed their first iterations of carbon rims that we made for them, and that was kind of where everything kicked off, and it's kind of been growing ever since.
Yeah, and then those rims, like the kind of selling point of that was those were Industry 9's own designs, right? I mean, you designed them, but they were, if people wanted that specific rim, they'd have to buy them through Industry 9.
Yeah, the first one we did a lot of use from our molds, our union molds. The iteration that's in place right now is their own iteration, but the first ones were kind of a carbon copy of what we were doing, and then white labeled, and then now it's 100% their design. Yeah.
I mean, let's be clear, though, that you say 100% our design. I mean, it's our specification in terms of what we wanted, but the real design work is, still done by Dustin and the people here at Are One. They understand carbon fiber. We just understood, well, we want a rim with these characteristics, But that's heavy how design work was done by them.
That's how so much manufacturing and white labeling gets done in this industry, as it is a customer comes with, this is the result we want for our brand. Manufacturer, please help us make that. But that's
why we do what we do, in Asheville, and why we were, one of the big reasons we're interested in Are One is to actually have that knowledge and actually understand it. And, then that gives you the feedback loop to making better things. So, I do think that's critical.
Could we actually go back? Because like Industry 9 itself is such an interesting company, and you guys don't do a lot of asking other people to make stuff for you. Can we maybe do a quick background on Industry 9 itself and your sort of how you are the founder and owner of Industry 9, is that right, Clint? I don't know what your official title is, but how did it come to be? I remember you saying it was your 9th venture. That's why it's I9.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it all started with my father starting a machine shop, which was contract manufacturing when basically the same year I was born. And, he did like every startup, started with one person, one machine, and build it. And all of his business was based on contract stuff. But, most contract manufacturers have a dream to develop their own product line. so they can control their manufacturing and not at the whim of every other customer they have. And so when I decided to make that company my career when I was 16, my father and I partnered, and we were partners at the advent of Industry 9 as well. And but my goal was to develop a product line, and so the Industry 9 was the ninth one and the one that really was successful, and most of the other ones were failures, but they were attempts at developing a product line. So we did EDM tooling, we did software, we did a high-end tactical knife company, we did EDM tooling, we did a robotics company, we did a high-end packaging machinery company. I mean, we did a lot of interesting things, but again, most of them were failures, not like bankruptcy style, but like just decided, that they weren't going to be viable until Industry 9 started. So
you weren't a bike guy to start, but you came into the bike industry via, was it Diacomp?
Yeah, so my introduction to the bicycle world was actually when I was in college. We had started making prototypes for RockShox, and RockShox was a upstart company that was a partnership between two individuals, Simon and Turner, and then a Japanese company, Diacomp. And it just so happened that Diacomp had their U.S. factory in Asheville, and we were one of the biggest machine shops in Asheville. So they started sourcing parts through us. I actually, interestingly enough, I had a couple of buddies from high school that were working there, but that really wasn't the impetus of it. They probably introduced us, but it was just, we were a capable big machine shop. So what was interesting is my very first year out of college, man, I hit the floor running with rapid growth because of RockShox. It hit that year, and we doubled the size of our machine shop because of RockShox. But I wasn't a cyclist, so I would occasionally go ride bikes with them, but I was such a workaholic, that, I mean, really my ethos was I don't have time for hobbies, and it was a bad way to live. But nevertheless, I enjoyed it at the time, and I was super hyper driven. And that was a great piece of business for us. But then the RockShox partnership melted down. They moved it to California. Cane Creek became, our investors bought Diacomp from the Japanese, and it became Cane Creek. And then Cane Creek actually came to me asking me to develop a bicycle hub. And they had an idea for a high engagement hub. They didn't really know how to make it, but they were like, if you could develop this, that would be great. We need a new product line. And, that was right up my alley to jump onto something like that. And so I started, and it was about 2-year, very expensive effort to try to develop this hub. I should mention, when they bought Diacomp, they basically blew their money or spent all their money. So they asked me to develop it, and I would own the design, but they would be the sole marketer of it. So at any rate, I spent a lot of years developing that, and ultimately couldn't build a hub that was strong enough and met their weight requirements. So they dropped the project. And then we were pretty much out of bicycle world for about 10 years. And that's when my health caught up with me, workaholic nature. And I started riding bikes in about my mid-30s. And of course, I couldn't keep from thinking about, the hub failure that I had. And so I'd ride a bike, and then I'd have an idea, and I'd go in the machine shop. I was still a workaholic. I'd work all night long, make a hub, try it again the next day, repeat for probably 2 years until we launched I9. So that's basically the rough story.
One of the coolest things about that hub run, as I've seen it, and it's actually like so telling of where we're at today, because it's a roller clutch design, but they used carbon on the shell to avoid it from expanding so much when the roller clutch was under torque. So it's like super funny to see, like, that was where I9 started, and now we're talking about very similar things today.
I mean, I was going to ask, like, what was the initial Cane Creek? It sounded like they didn't have an idea; they just had a result they were looking for. But what was your Cane Creek idea, and how did that end up? How close is that to what a Hydra is now?
Yeah, I mean, the Hydra is totally different in terms of how we did it, but yeah, they had the concept of a silent. Actually, they wanted a silent and a fast engagement hub. And they had mentioned that, some people had tried this roller clutch idea. And, so that's what we started running with. And, spent all the time to do it. But, the unfortunate thing with roller clutches, sprag clutches as well, is they're a wedge, basically. And, it's kind of like when you're chopping wood, you can take a little wedge and just do little, hammer on it, and it's going to eventually wedge the thing open. And, that's the same thing that happened with the roller clutch design. And like Dustin was saying, we were wrapping it in carbon fiber to avoid that wedging method. But still, material deforms, material moves, material flows, so even, eventually you were still going to have problems with it. And, they work great for a little while, and then they tend to, just wear out and eventually fail. So it ended up, when I started working on the other hub, I really felt that I was world's foremost expert on roller clutches after I'd spent so many years and so much effort doing it. And I was absolutely convinced at that point that that was not how you were going to make a hub, not meeting some weight requirements you needed. So I worked on so many wild ideas. I wish I'd saved them. They were just ridiculous. But just was just trial and error and over and over and over and over again until, we came up with, the phased engagement. And then, the Hydra was a little bit of a different idea, but that's roughly it. So.
Well, I mean, it's a long, you guys, what year did Industry 9 launch?
So we launched 2005. This will be our 20th year anniversary. Actually, I'm not sure I'm supposed to announce that, but I probably started working on the prototypes in 2003. And going back to where I did the first hub, that was probably in 93 for Kent Creek.
And then you guys launched, the last time we chatted, you went real deep on the spokes, aluminum spokes. Yeah. And what year that was a bit later, obviously.
No, that was all the same. When we launched it, we had the spokes and the drive mechanism. But, when it was actually within, a few weeks after we had started looking like we were having a good drive mechanism, I was like, well, what the hell's the next thing to do? Let's see if we can get crazy with spokes. And boy, I wish I'd just saved all those designs too. One of the most wild ideas that we had was to take a solid sheet of stainless steel, and we water jetted it into basically a spider web pattern, which was, we were just trying to minimize the connection points to the hub, maximize it to the rim, and then save weight all the way between it. So we made this big sheet, one piece spoke, let's call it, like all the spokes were one piece. And then we brazed little threaded ends on it and then bolted it to the face of the hub and then trued it like that. It was pretty cool looking, and it worked really great. But unfortunately, you were using about 5% of.
I was going to say material utilization would have been sweet.
Yeah, a little bit of waste
maybe
there.
$500 of stainless steel gone, and then brazing the nipples on was hell, and and of course the quality elements of that were hell. But it's like everything. All of our designs, we started out with just, quite honestly, pull something out of your ass and then start working on it. And, just evolved. And so actually, one of the guys that helped me start Industry 9 was a Swiss lathe machinist. And we had a bunch of Swiss lathes from the RockShox days, because we made these big, long connecting rods from the adjuster down to the bottom of the fork. And so this machinist said, why don't we just Swiss machine a spoke? And so we started out with that, where it was just a long piece of aluminum that was machined, in which, this guy was a real style guy. John Kiffmeyer was his name. And he really was advocating for the colors also, which was at that point to me insane. And because of the inventory management and everything else that went into it. But he had it to where there was little bolts that were at the end of this aluminum rod that you trued that way. And then I guess that led to the aha moment with me, that I was like, well, why don't we just make it one big long bolt and all one piece? And, and then that's where we're like, oh man, we got something now. And that was the last piece. And, even at the time we were developing all this, I wasn't sure we were going to launch a brand. I had failed so many other times that, I was maybe even considering just licensing it to somebody, um, that really understood the bicycle world. But fortunately, I started developing people in the community that were interested and understood the bicycle world a lot better than I did. From a business standpoint. And that's what, ultimately caused us to decide to actually launch it ourselves and create a brand ourselves.
So then jumping, 15 years forward to early 2020s, I9 grows sort of year over year, doesn't seem to get out in front of over its skis too much. 2020 things get weird for you and everybody in the industry, but you guys, it seems like we're pretty able to manage the challenges both of undersupply and oversupply in the industry pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, just systematically we're set up so much better. We had, this is one of, I feel for Dustin. Dustin, when 2020 hit, he was still in basically startup years. And, we had, all the way back from 1969 from the machine shop, at least machines paid for and buildings paid for. So, we're in a good debt to asset ratio. We had experienced 30% growth in Industry 9 year over year. We had been managing that growth well. We hadn't had, and even, we were such big contract manufacturers. We had, we have about 100 CNCs now, but probably, back in 19, maybe it was more like 90. It wasn't a heck of a lot more. But if you go back to 2005, we had a hell of a lot of CNC machines. So we were able to transfer, and a lot of them were paid for. So we were able to transfer those to bicycle production or bicycle hub production and just moved away from the contract manufacturing, which was absolutely devastated in the tank. I mean, we almost went bankrupt between 95 and 2005 with globalization. And all the parts that we made were being made in Asia. So, but, we had started crawling out of our hole all the way back into 2000. From 2008 was probably the first year, even though everybody else crashed, that was the first year we started growing again. And then, so by the time 2019 hits, we're in good shape. Monetarily, we're in good shape. Our debt was low, workforce, everything was stable. 2020 hits. And we see the big surge. And of course, I mean, I'll have to say, I found it ridiculous right from the start. It was going to be a short-term surge. And, a lot of the people in my company were looking at the potential to grow. And I'm like, well, let's keep in mind, this is definitely going to end in a crash. So, every decision we made was with the thing in mind that we were going to crash. And, to be ready for it. But we also felt like, if we didn't meet the demand of what everybody was asking for, we'd just simply lose that business and we would still crash because the industry was crashing. So it was really just a matter of going for it as hard as we could, saving that money and then being prepared for it. And we just had all the resources in place. We had to buy some new machines. We actually bought a building during that time, which was something we needed to do anyway. But that ended up being a good move for us when we got the building cheap and at an incredibly low interest rate. So that, our building is being paid for by half of it as renters. So, we were in great financial position there. And, it was very stressful time for the people. There was a lot of craziness that went down and a lot of heartbreak from a person standpoint, but from a company, we were in great shape and had all the resources to shift. And, it was a lot of work, I suppose, but overall it wasn't earth shattering. And, and the exit was fine.
Dean, I feel like Dean is from Bicycle Retailer, our sister site. And it seems like there were so many different approaches to how people went through the COVID boom and bust cycle, but it also kind of seems like the result was quite similar because I don't know if you're a bike manufacturer like Dustin at the time. It doesn't matter if you didn't over order. The fact that Santa Cruz over ordered or Specialized over ordered is going to impact you either way. Am I characterizing that correctly?
Yeah, pretty much. Also, with Clint's situation, he can manufacture on demand basically, and that's a really, really big key. But, I think also, I think the industry itself, at least the local bike shops that I spoke with during that time, most of them were very optimistic that we were truly in a bike boom. But I think the smarter people like Clint probably realized that, you can't necessarily depend on that, especially with the infrastructure issues that we have in the States, that we're necessarily going to become a bike country. And I think obviously that proved it out. However, I would say that the thing I heard a lot about was that high-end manufacturers of wheel sets, like say i9, did pretty well because a lot of the supply issues, people were looking for lesser priced components like wheel sets, and when they couldn't find them, they were just upgrading. They were spending more than what maybe they initially planned, and companies like i9, I think, did pretty well with that. I mean, I don't want to speak for Clint, but I did hear a lot about that as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's about what gets you out of balance. It was good for everybody. I don't know if it was particularly good for us, but I mean, it was awesome times for a short period of time. And then it just was, what all the cycles of moves, how it got out of balance. I guess, it's not like I'm some big expert on that, but, they talk about the bullwhip effect and how things just reverberate and then they get way out of control down the line. Perfect example, Dustin, as we were going through the factory, we were looking at all the various inventories, and Dustin is in good shape. He'd had low problems with this, but like there was, what were we talking about? Like $30,000 of spokes that is going to be hard for us to move through. And, that was a forced move because the spoke manufacturers were saying, if you don't order this stuff now, you aren't going to get it for 4 more years. They had so much lined up. And so, it forced people to be like, oh my God, either, we buy it now or we're going to shut the company down. My decision, I mean, I had spokes that I had to manufacture, but my decision was order more raw material. And, when this thing exited, I had to have raw material contracts in place for, generally aluminum. And, when it crashed, I had about $2 million of aluminum contracts that I had to cover. And, and it took us about 1.5 years to burn through all that without ordering more aluminum. But, again, we had the years and the resources stored up to, that wasn't going to kill us. We didn't have to unload it. It was raw material. That's way different than hell. How about if you had an e-bike that was going to be upgraded every, year? You had to move that shit. But, aluminum is aluminum. It's going to be used 2 years from now. And even if we changed our product, even, Hydra 2 still uses the same aluminum. So, that was good. And actually, we even got lucky. We started all those contracts with aluminum at $4 or $5 a pound, probably closer to $5. And then at the peak of the pandemic, that stuff spiked into like the $12 range. And we had already had our contracts. So then when it ended, we had plenty of aluminum, and we never had to pay $12 a pound for aluminum.
I just did some math. So you have
these things
400,000 pounds of aluminum sitting around. Like, how do you even store 400,000 pounds of aluminum?
Big buildings and big yards. It's not that big, If you take, I'll do a calculation. Like a bar of aluminum that we might use it's a little smaller and at 3 inches, but we'll just use it. 1 bar of aluminum is $500. Right. So divide that out. It's a lot of bars, but it wasn't that crazy. So
the Fort Knox of aluminum just down there in North Carolina.
That's one machine shop of many. That's the crazy thing.
Right.
Yeah. Kind of gives you the whole scale of that raw material supply chain is insane.
Fort Bauxite. Is there, I think it'd be interesting to hear, Dustin, obviously your company's experience was not the same as Clint's company's experience through the pandemic, but can we maybe, again, for people that aren't familiar with the We Are One story, start before then? Like, you had a career racing mountain bikes
No.
and you've done industry stuff before.
Yeah.
You want to give people a little intro into how you came to launch We Are One?
Yeah, I mean, it was, I guess, stopped racing and then traveled around the world and learned a whole bunch of stuff. Took on every job I could under the sun to kind of figure out what I was going to be as a human, and stumbled across business. It was much like mountain biking, it was one of those things where you could apply as much effort as you could, and you were destined with what you put in and the decisions you made. So it was kind of a perfect fit for an athlete, I think, to find a new succession plan. So yeah, I did stone business, started cutting marble and granite and installing stone. I ran that business for 6-7 years and sold it off, and learned a lot about automation, CNC, CAM procedures and stuff like that, because you use very similar functions. You onion skin a stone like you would onion skin a piece of aluminum or tool anything up. So it was very, very similar in nature, and took all those and sold that company and traveled, and decided that I was going to get back into the bike business some way, shape, or form, because it was it's my passion. It's what I wanted to do as a kid. And I kind of, when I was about 14, 15, I made the decision that it would be a good idea for me to own or build a bike at some point in my life. I didn't really have the idea of the business, but yeah, I came back from a trip to Southeast Asia with my family for about 9 months, and found a job through an actual ex-customer of mine who was a partner in Noble Wheels, and spent some time with Noble, to factories in China, and learning the ins and outs of when kind of carbon rims were starting to come on. You know, it was a big trend with wide carbon rims at the time. But yeah, I went there, found that the process was kind of not ideal. It was still young in its infancy, and I think a lot of production schedules, or the production facilities that we were touring and also producing at, there was massive improvements that could be made. But I found it was very difficult to make any changes stick. When we were at the factory, we would have a discussion, be met with a lot of yes, okay, let's try it. Iterations would be made, or changes would be made for that day. We would get a report about positive or negative, and then that negative mainly came back with, well, it's better just to continue doing it the way we do it right now, and there's no need to change because it's good, everybody's happy. So I kind of came away from that thinking, like, there's got to be a better way. There was a lot of post mold, like, so product out of the mold now. There was almost equal, if not more, labor being applied to the product, and I said, like, this to me is a massive waste. If you were going to be hyper efficient and produce a great product, it had to come out of the mold perfect, and then you could just cut 2/3 of your labor force. And I made the pitch to the owners of Noble at that time, and they kind of, there's just no way. They had plans to build Noble up and somehow get consumed by Light Bicycle at the time, and that was their mission and their vision. I came on as just an investor, so that was when I decided that was it. I got to make a run at this, and I sold my house in Squamish and entered into We Are One. So
sounds financially responsible.
No, I would not recommend that to anybody nowadays. It's as much as it was fun and good, I think it would be a way to quickly die nowadays. But I got very lucky and learned very quick with a small group of people. We built the first rim and brought it to market within 6 months of our initial kind of like kickoff, and have pretty much struggled to meet production demands since. We've had multiple issues with this business growing it to this point. With generally, it stems back to facilities. That was our number one issue in Kamloops. We were growing and scaling so quick that we couldn't find a facility where we all could fit under one roof and actually produce the product and be most efficient. Took us 5 years, 6 years to get to that point. At some point, we had almost five facilities within Kamloops doing some sort of the production, either on frames or wheels or rims, or housing our management team, our assembly team. And stuff was just being driven around Kamloops like crazy. So that was our COVID. Our COVID was just like, take these rims from this shop over to that shop so they can get drilled, take those finished rims from that shop over to that shop, they can get assembled. And then once they're assembled, put them into boxes and bring them over to this shop so we can apply a shipping label and get it out the door. So it was really efficient. It was absolutely awesome.
Sounds brutal.
So it was brutal. It was like, and then thank God looking back, I'm surprised we had such great employees that would willingly drive their vehicles around and do it. And we were not set up for this. It's not like there was a company vehicle driving around and everything. So a lot of people were, in this business as much as I was as a founder, and the employees were fantastic through it, and everybody worked really hard to make that a success. But we still, up until earlier this year, we've still been struggling to keep up with production. I mean, our hand to mouth on demand is generally a week behind. So we caught up finally this year. But yeah, it's been a hell of a struggle ever since.
I mean, you guys, from when does We Are One launch?
June 2017 is when we launched to the world. The company was formed in January 7th of 2017.
Okay. And then, so 2017 through 2020, you were a startup, like normal bike industry startup. It's pretty impressive. You were delivering, how long before, you said 6 months to deliver a carbon rim?
Yeah,
that's crazy.
I think from the idea, the concept, the mold that I had designed to finished product into people's hands was just under 6 months. Yeah.
That's wild, especially wild that it was a good product.
Yeah, I think it was a great product for what it was, and the time and the effort and the team that we had. Absolutely, that was kick ass.
So from there, things are happening normally. You kind of expand into some other categories. Specifically, what year did you launch the bike? 21?
Bike was 21, yeah.
21.
Yeah, we'd worked on that since early 20.
And you'd done a partnership on handlebars.
Yep.
You did a few other stems were somewhere in that mix as well.
Collaboration with 77 Designs on a stem and a handlebar concept. Yep.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then just a quick interjection. Didn't you almost die also during that year you were developing the bike?
I did almost die. Yeah. Truth be told. Yep. Yeah. I lost my spleen in a massive bike crash when I was testing the bike. And I was like 4 units of blood I took. So yeah, I was damn near close dead. If I hadn't have got out of the bush in the speed that I got out of there, I think it would have been in big trouble.
Yeah. What happened? Was it a bike failure or what?
No, just I was, oddly enough, a month prior to that, I had a massive crash and pretty bad head injury from it. That was just a freak accident. Pedal caught a stump and just buried myself, lawn darted into the upside of a hill. And then a month after that, we're goofing around at Harper testing the bike, and everyone's like, well, you got to ride it. And I was like, no, I'm not. I couldn't. And I'm like riding with my kids. So I'm like, okay, well, if my kids, who were at the time, I think they might have been 9 and 6 or maybe a little bit older than that, maybe a year or two older. But if they go in front of me, that'll be the thing that holds me back from doing stupid things. And they were in front of me. And same thing happened.
It just got too fast, huh?
I caught a pedal and I went down, and then pop felt this like burst in my side. I'm like, ooh, that felt weird. Like I never felt that before. And then I couldn't get my, when you do the grape lady, I couldn't get it back. Oh. So it was just grape ladying for like an hour straight. And then I got down. I decided like, I'm not down at the road. I have to ride out of here or else I'm going to die. And I rode my ass down to the road and laid on the ground, and they shoveled me in the back of the van, and me, my kids, and my machinist Jill ripped me to the hospital. Yeah. And then I passed out in the holding bay, and they did the whole crash cart thing on me and emergency surgery on the spleen. Yeah, bleeding like crazy.
That's good. Yeah, just normal bike development stuff, just a little aside. Yeah, almost died. Then we got the bikes out, and they were very well received. And onwards.
that was a big blow. Yeah, like it was kind of hard, but I mean, everybody picked up the slack there really well, and we still pushed it through. Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, that's really impressive. You see somebody that can get a good rim out in 6 months, and then, you can develop a bike not only in a year, but you can also be half dead and still get it out in a year. That impressed me. I know that.
Well,
more so than any other developer I've ever known in my life, actually. So,
well, you had last time we did this podcast, we chatted about the contributions of Vlad the Laminator.
Yeah, Vlad. Yeah.
Have you? He's not. So you are no longer doing the bike.
Yeah,
at this time.
Yeah,
and Vlad is no longer directly involved with that. But have you chatted with him about future projects at all?
we talk a lot. Yeah, me and Vlad talk a lot. There will be Vlad has a big goal in his life he wants to achieve, and that's to manufacture a hypercar.
Yep.
So his vision and mission is set, and I don't doubt him for a second that he'll achieve it, and I wish him all the luck in doing that. But we stay in touch very often, and we talk a lot, and Vlad will be involved as a contractor within this organization again for sure, and in this current organization that we're talking about today. He's a superpower when it comes to design and whatnot, and we can use his tools for sure.
Vlad is if anybody listening, I really encourage you to go and watch. Vlad is the guy who did a downhill bike development series like a decade ago with Easy Composites on YouTube. I think we first found him at like Riva or something in 2016.
And in Innsbruck.
Yeah, I don't remember what it was,
works.
but Paul Aston did a thing with him, and I remember just being blown away watching this guy's video. And he's not a classically trained engineer, but he's very much a get shit done and practical testing type guy, and he is such a sick designer. Every time he texts me, I'm like, oh my god, what are you working on? He sent me some of the hypercar stuff once in a while.
Yeah, from that article that was put up, I mean, Vlad contacted us through that whole process, asking for rims, and that's how I met him. And I didn't know anything about it. I was just like, yeah, another guy wanting some rims. I'm like, okay, sure, yeah, that sounds sick. Let's go for it. And then the article came up, and I think it was Leger actually where it was, but the article came up, and I saw the bike, and I went, God damn, man, like, we got to talk, because you clearly know what you're doing. I like the design. If you've done all of this, and I didn't know the Easy Composite video hadn't been released yet, but that's how we connected, literally on a Pinkbike chat. Then it was like, you need to get over here, and we need to do something together, and it just kind of rolled from there.
Impressive. I like that when people have just small goals, like developing a hypercar, and then they probably will actually achieve it. It's nice. Like everyone has little things in life. I'm like, I'm just going to do this, and he probably will. Cool.
Yeah, I really want that for him. I mean, he deserves it. He really wants to pour his heart and soul into the next big project, and I hope that someone along the line can connect him with someone that could give him that ability, or put him in the seat of having that ability, because I would love nothing more than to see him succeed.
What's cool, this isn't a Vlad podcast, I swear, but one of the really cool things about Vlad is how much he walked me through some of his design stuff for one of his first projects, which was not, I think it was like a high heel.
Yeah, a high heel shoe.
Shoe. And it was the intensity he had about the high heel shoe he designed is exactly the same as the intensity he brought for the downhill bike project, and then into the Arrival. Such a cool, and we have so many like theoretical people in the bike industry who will design the perfect bike on paper and tell Kaz and Kaz's team, well, this bike is the best because of all these theories we put into it. And Vlad is like the polar opposite to that. And I think you are too, in some ways, where it's like, we had this idea, so we tried it.
Yeah. Well, our fundamentals were like, there's no such thing as 100% perfect, because, you chase this down and you get there. We had the 80% rule. So if the bike could do everything that a bike needs to do at 80%, that's the best possible bike. And then the big caveat was that it has to last 10 years. If it doesn't last 10 years, we're wasting our time. So like if our warranties were, that 5 to 10% range, like most companies, it's like we would never have done it. So yeah, there was some very simple things that we put into it, and it took all of the things about being proprietary and threw it out the window. Like all the bolt design was like, well, if I'm at Whistler and I break a bolt, can I go into Home Depot or Home Hardware, Canadian Tire, and pick up a bolt that would work and function fine? He's like, yes. So like that's where this all came from.
Do you have the same theory on rims? Like, is it it's not a 10-year in your mind, is it? 10-year product?
I mean, if you rode it appropriately and if you were riding it as a normal use case and were like holding yourself accountable, yeah. I mean, I still to this day, I'm 8.5 years in, and I still haven't broke any of our products. Like that's dead set. I'll look you in the eye and I'll show you. Like that's not me getting a new rim every 2 weeks. It's like I have some product that is original, and there's no issues whatsoever. So yeah, I mean, the carbon. That's the beautiful thing about it. It doesn't fatigue over time, and if you ride it appropriately and check your pressures and you ride within your capabilities and your product's capabilities, yeah, absolutely.
So what happened in the last 5 years to bring you to the point where you decided to sell the company?
Knew you were going to ask that.
Yeah,
right. Well, I mean, it's behind us now. So nothing is ever perfect in business. I look at We Are One as my classical MBA. When I started it, I would say I was extremely green on business as far as like, okay, I would say I would operate a sole proprietorship just fine. You know, money comes in, we pay the bills, we pay the employees, and this is what we're left over. It's simple. When it comes down to corporation where you're the CEO and you're the founder and you're the chairman of the board and whatnot, you have a totally different fiduciary duty and a whole different structure that I was not up to speed on. So in the process of building We Are One, we have had to take on shareholders, and it was probably not done in the best way possible. And I made some mistakes, and those mistakes have cost me the ability to push the company into its best situation with financial backing and funding and investment. And it's kind of basically the only way for me to go forward would be for me to sell or give up my equity position and become a significant minority in the organization. And that tumultuous push and pull, and over the last 2.5 years, the amount of money that's been kind of like consumed away from pushing the company forward has had dire effects on the overall outcome and success of the company. And as a CEO and the founder, I just had to make a decision. I mean, I can't keep coming in and doing things for everybody here. I mean, I have a duty to the shareholders and I have a duty to the people. In the best situation, I can't give them everything that they need without this thing being given away to somebody or sold to somebody, because the position just wasn't going to happen. So it's unfortunate that is the case, but we've landed, I think, at the best case scenario with I9, who's a very, very similar company to We Are One when it comes to core values, the way they operate and whatnot. And it's going to give everybody, including the shareholders, the best outcome from a situation that just didn't really have any progression. There was just really no progression from that point if it didn't happen.
So I'm probably oversimplifying. And Dean, feel free to jump in here from an industry standpoint. But for a business simpleton over here, are financial challenges in that way as simple as like what Clint was chatting about earlier, where it's like if we don't order X number of things, we may as well close the company down because we won't have anything to sell type of thing? Like, do most of these challenges that you're talking about boil down to like, we need to raise a bunch more, like people want the product, we need to raise a bunch more money, but I can't in the current scenario? Or
for us, I'll paint the picture, I guess, clearer. So we've struggled for 8 years to produce enough product to meet demand. I've, as the CEO, I'm struggled all the time with what we all call planning. Can we produce a strategic plan to position the company, 4 or 5 years out in this new vision that we have? So I can put on paper. Like I have a vision. I want to see this through to here. I've got all these things laid out. I've got how we're going to operate, the way we're going to go to market, the marketing plan, how it's going to look, feel, and all that. So very good at that. The challenge is like you can't execute on it if you don't have a backing. So if you got this plan, you need to be able to make very meaningful steps towards achieving it. And if you're reliant on only the cash coming into the organization to make those steps, sure, you might make one step forward, and then you run into a cash shortcome or shortfall, and you have to go back a step, and you're just going this forward step, back step, forward step, back step. So then over time, what happens, unfortunately, is your organization starts to look at you, and the shareholders start to look at you and go like, you're the problem. And I'm saying to the shareholders, well, like, actually, we are the problem because we can't produce a meaningful investment for this organization, and none of us are willing to step out of the way to make that happen because we're in this really bad situation, and it needs it to be successful. So we can't make a strategic plan. Now, okay, then what's the point of doing any of this if we can't see progression forward and make a strategic plan that's meaningful to put the company in the best possible situation? And we've lost a ton of opportunity to capitalize on that, especially during COVID, where we could have absolutely been in a much better situation. And I'll say today that the death of the arrival was one of the biggest reasons that happened, was because of this.
Dean, does that mirror what you hear from a lot of companies?
Yes, that it does. Also, Dustin, if I could just ask kind of a follow-up question. Have you guys had to have any sort of workforce reductions, and is the merger almost a way to ensure that you don't have to have any workforce reductions there in Kamloops?
So the merger wasn't so much to save the people. Business operates cash in, cash out. It's either going to be positive or negative. Simple, right? That's just the way it is. You can't make it any way fancier. The company was in the last year and a half was burning more cash, spending more cash on expenses and whatnot than it was taking in. And yes, we had to reduce staff, no question, in order to right size the organization so that we stopped burning cash. We had started with, okay, can we cut the arrival? So the arrival was first. Okay, what other product lines can we cut so that we can shrink our overall cash demand, and can we salvage it from there? And it wasn't like just one big felt swoop. It was over time. It was over a year, actually. So we did the arrival, and then we did a staff reduction based on the people that were involved in that process, and we moved a bunch of people over to the actual RIM side of things. And we ran that for 4 or 5 months, still burning cash. Okay, well, we better do something else. So then it became only critical employees. Now it's down to management. We lost a lot of management in the last one, but now the company is officially not in a situation where it's burning cash to a rate that it can't move forward. It's not like stopped. We were burning a significant amount of cash through the last year before this acquisition.
Dustin got past his danger point, we probably all have, but
what do you mean by that?
Like the acquisition isn't essential to save We Are One. I don't want that ever to be the sentiment here. Like, we would survive and we will survive had this not happened just fine. Like, the finances are in place, and we're not like back up against the wall in a situation like that. This is a strategic move to position We Are One finally in the best possible outcome that we can't make happen under the share structure we have right now.
So this acquisition essentially will give you the resources to grow at the rate you wanted, or to do projects that you wouldn't be able to in the past, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, it simplifies the ability to move forward. Yeah.
And, it's not just about like you have to have the resources to move forward and to develop all the things that you want to do. But you also have to have the people to do that. You have to have the skills. And, the truth of the matter is Dustin has a lot of owners, and I was in this state for 30 years of my career. You have to wear every single hat, and you aren't in the position to hire the best people. You don't have the money to hire the best people. And I mean, you get some of the best people, but not like enterprise wide. And so us merging has created such a huge pool of talent and abilities, like from the business side, sales, marketing, production, production planning and stuff like that. Industry 9 and, key people at We Are One will be able to team up and just make that stuff flow very, very smoothly. Industry 9, it flows very, very smoothly. I've been able to, remove myself from those elements several years ago and, to focus on my real skills, which, development and the manufacturing side of it. And now that's going to let Dustin have the time to do it. But on top of it, we have a bunch of other resources from, engineers and manufacturing experts and stuff like that, that'll really, be able to work together and pull off some amazing stuff. So the team that we put together is huge. And there is limits in terms of your money and your size and even just, your presence to bring the best, people in to get the job done. So
I think it's a good transition to Clint. Why did you want We Are One?
Well, I mean, mainly is because it's the most impressive company I've seen in the bicycle world. And Dustin, being the leader of it, the most impressive figure in the bicycle world. I've known a lot of people, there's a lot of impressive people, but they do, just in terms of, having their manufacturing done in Asia for the most part, fails to capture the real spirit of it all to me. And so, We Are One is a company that can do things and do amazing things. Again, develop a rim in 6 months, develop a bicycle in a year. God, like that's insane.
Actually, insane.
Yeah. And, of course that means, an incredible big deal to me. I've also wanted to learn carbon fiber myself, like I recognize that there's a lot of, in anything, not just bicycles, but anything you build, you have your metal and your metal turning and your machine and your forgings, all that stuff, which I understand well, but I did not understand carbon fiber well. And of course I still don't understand it well, but my biggest point of being in Kamloops this week is I'm just going to immerse myself in carbon fiber and lay up a bunch of rims and, just work with it until I, get that basis to really start understanding it better. But that's been a dream of mine. And being who I am, every single factory I go to, every single person I talk to, I mean, they are so tight-lipped, and I've never seen anything but a pinhole view into any kind of carbon fiber factory. Just for reference, if you want to come visit me in my machine shop, I'll show you every single ounce of it. But carbon fiber people are much more secretive as far as that's concerned. And quite honestly, there were some people that I could have hired, consultants, but, I just didn't really get the sense that they would really show me what I needed to do. And they weren't doing it themselves. They were people who specified stuff for Asian factories to do it. So if I was going to learn carbon fiber, it was going to be from these guys and only these guys. And, so that was probably the biggest reason. And just, I knew putting our forces together would pull off incredible things. And I fully expect that, and that's what means something to me, just pull off some amazing stuff.
How sketchy are those first rims that Clint lays up going to be, Dustin? What's the
learning? They are going to be sold. Let's put it that way. I'll take that off the table.
It's all on him. If he has the good dexterity and whatnot, and how to manipulate it, I think he'll be fine. But the process is pretty straightforward. But if he can place it and handle it and whatnot, it'll be good. You might get frustrated and just say, "Oh, the hell with this! I ain't never doing this again." I don't know. We'll see.
Just covered in epoxy and carbon bits. I'm done.
I like getting dirty, so that's not going to take me down. But I mean, that's my world. I love doing stuff like that. I love working with my hands. So, I'm not going to say that, in the period of time I'm going to be practicing, I'm going to have a rim that I want to send to our customers. But, a couple weeks, I'll be good at it, I would hope.
We can't have him back there laminating too much, as our cost of goods sold is going to go through the roof.
It's going to be a little bit of a high cost of goods sold. So, at any rate.
Fair.
But,
Dustin, you, in the last time we chatted, you were very honest about how conflicted you were about this decision, and you characterized it at least partially as a failure on your part. Do you still feel that way?
But I wouldn't say that. I'm not. Yeah, I feel disappointed. I had all the conversations and all of the plans and all of the discussions that were put in place to get this company to this point actually transpired the way they should have, I think we would be in a different situation immensely. However, that being said, am I disappointed with this outcome? Absolutely not. I mean, I respect Clint dearly and his team, and I think this is the absolute best outcome for everybody, including myself. And I think that what we're going to see moving forward from here for this company or for the new organization as they come together is just going to be such a wicked place to be involved in, and a place to be for me. And that has to kind of unfold. But it's great to have Clint here and be involved in the team, and that Taylor and all those supporting roles that Clint was discussing are now available. And a lot of the freight that I've been carrying for the last 2 years is starting to kind of already come off. So I'm already feeling some reprieve, which is amazing. So no, I don't have it now that I'm starting to see it kind of unfold before my eyes and what the next steps will look like. I see it more as okay, this is just the next iteration, the next chapter for this organization. And it's okay. It's not mine anymore, but I still have a lot of power, and I still have a lot of ability to be involved. And Clint has empowered me to be like that. We had a great chat on the way over today, and you might see me down here. I moved out of my office because I wanted to make sure that he was comfortable when he moved in. He goes, "God damn it, he's like, get that goddamn shit back in there. You need to be in the office. That's your office. You lead this friggin' place." And I'm like, okay. I just didn't know, right? Now that I've had this discussion, I'm at ease with it, and I feel a lot better. Yeah.
And I'd like to actually add some of the elements of that piece of, talking about being a failure and what that means and everything else. And, I go back to my first and biggest failure, and I mean, my God, I started manufacturing when I was, 5, and it was a great benefit. My dad started the business, and, I had a machine shop to play in. I mean, I didn't play, I had to produce, but, to me, it was playing, and I learned so much. And, I worked all through my life, and, like I said, made it my career at 16. And, I'm summers, I'm working 100-hour work weeks, and I'm passionate, and I'm just understanding and learning. And, the most energetic person I knew, I mean, didn't have that much to compare it to, but, I didn't know anyone that was smarter than I was. And, I was like, I have got to. God, I came out of college the cockiest fucker in the world. I just, swore that I was going to, hit it huge. And all the skills, all the background, I had the start, I did not have to suffer under nearly the oppression of money, and having shareholders and everything else. I had a great relationship with my father. I mean, everything was lined up. And first 2 years out of college, I doubled the size of the business. And I was like, well, I mean, that's okay, I guess. I mean, I needed to be doing more like quadrupling, but okay. That's my mindset. 95 roughly hits. And, basically the Western world, in a way, fucked me. our culture decided that, we could open up Asia, we could do a bunch of cheap manufacturing. And despite my best efforts, despite all my skills, despite all my efforts, all my team, everything, it was going to be nothing but failure. And I would have 100% failed if, my father hadn't had, nearly 20 years of existence that, had been good, and we had paid machinery off, and we had owned a building and all this kind of stuff. So, like we avoided that right from, right at by the hair of our chin, or whatever they say. And, and then it's, one struggle after another. And, I Industry 9, by the name of it, indicates that I had, at least 6 other companies that were failures. And man, they were my children. And when I shut them down, it killed me. Every ounce of me was wrapped up in those things. My identity was wrapped up into them. Actually, before Industry 9 started, I absolutely felt, well, I thought I was going to be a good businessman, but I am apparently wrong. And I need to this company's going to go bankrupt. Our machine shop's going to go bankrupt. I need to maybe figure out how to get a job as a machinist or a plumber or something that used my hands. I had talent, so I was like, I just need to do something that could use my talents, but I am not a business person. And that's when I started Industry 9. And I needed to start it like a hole in my head, because I had 4 other companies running that were all failing and all this kind of stuff. Any rate, all those moves bring you to your knees. But the one, I will say, some of those company failures were because of mistakes I made, or even entering marketplaces that I had no right to be in. You don't just start a car company, for instance, as a, regular human being, too much money. Yeah, there you go.
Unless it's a hypercar.
A hypercar one-off, but, you don't compete with GM. And, Dustin, obviously, because of the pandemic, his move to build the bike was such an incredibly bold and, almost destiny type move. And, because of the actions of the rest of the world, not mistakes he made, it brought him down. Now, that doesn't mean, poor us kind of thing. It's just, sometimes the world doesn't go your way. And, despite your best efforts, you do it. And then what you do is you fail, and then you dive back in there and you try again. And, this is, Dustin has, my full faith to do it again. And, what's on top of that is, I do not intend to ever sell Industry 9. And so, Industry 9 is going to be transferred to other people. And, I'm sure Justin will have ownership again, and
you heard it here first.
Yeah. And
this is legally binding, I think.
Yeah. Right.
Well, I'm fine with it being legally binding. I would want no more than that to happen. And other key people, that have really contributed to this company. I mean, it absolutely has to be transferred one of these days. And, it'll happen when I need to. It'll happen beforehand because of the people who have contributed and all the stuff that's associated with it. But, the reality of it is, this is about putting a truly formidable team together. And it is going to open up all of us to do the things that we need to do. And it's free of shareholder bullshit, and so what we do feeds directly back into the company. I'm fine financially. It doesn't, more money doesn't jazz me, but inventing the next cool thing, developing the next thing that, makes people happy and makes the riding better, or whatever we do, that jazzes me. And, we have the team to do that. And so, yeah, we'll call Dustin having a little setback here, but what he built is still there. This team is still there. The spirit and what it accomplishes is still fucking there. And that is what he created, and that's what I value. And so, yeah, it was a good, solid ass kicking, but, it's, you get back up on that horse and do it again. And I promise you, we will do it. So
now you can kind of see why I chose Clint.
Yeah. That's good. I like that. I mean, just like from my end, having interviewed lots of people over the years and things, just the honesty and just the transparency is so refreshing. I mean, from both of you over the years, Dustin, I've dealt with you more, but I just appreciate so much when people are straightforward and don't try to hide things or make things more, secretive, or when they don't need to be. So it is nice to, from an outsider getting a little peek in, just to have that level of like, we did this, we can fix this, we're going to do this, this is what's next. It's so refreshing in an industry that people like to hide behind smoke and mirrors and hype things up that don't always need hype. So for mine, it's really cool to see.
And we'll
What-
take
We
it
do
from
real
me.
shit.
I was,
There's no
I
doubt.
was, oh, sorry, Clint.
Okay,
I was just
sorry.
going to say, take it from me. If you ever have an opportunity, if you're in Asheville, you have an opportunity to go visit Clint and his staff over at I-9. I promise you, it will be a day you will not forget. Clint is such a great host. He moves 100 miles a minute. He talks 100 miles a minute, but he will show you so much about manufacturing. And that factory is so cool. If you're a geek for any sort of bike stuff, especially wheel sets, man, you're in heaven there. I highly recommend it. It's a really well-run facility and just the coolest stuff ever there.
Can we?
Appreciate you saying that, Dean. It means a lot.
I want to know what you're going to do with this whole thing. So I will caveat this: I have not read your FAQ or your release about the purchase. What's the plan? Is We Are One going to stay its own brand under the Industry 9 banner, or is it all going to be wrapped in as it's an Industry 9 rim?
Just hang on, I got to get the press release here. I got my talking points.
I'll say this. To me, you have names, and then you have the people that are doing the things that they're doing and stuff like that. So, like right now, We Are One's a good brand. We're going to keep it around. We're going to keep Industry 9 around. We're going to operate as one company. What we might decide to do with naming structures and everything else is probably a little bit to be seen. But, ultimately the crew stays the same, each operation, continues operating the way it is with a lot of, support back and forth between, the people who can do the best in each company and then make some great stuff. And, We Are One, we want to keep it around and, we'll probably develop better marketing strategies and all that stuff. But,
and will you keep the Kamloops facility, or the Kamloops sort of, I don't know if there is a specific facility now, but like, will there be a footprint up in Canada still?
Oh, hell yeah. And this is an impressive factory. Again, this is literally 15 minutes ago, or 15 minutes before this started, I just finished a complete rundown from every single step of their operation, from cutting to layup to molding, heating, all the stuff. It's an impressive operation. They're doing a really good job. A good staff of people. It's like, what we're able to accomplish is because of the people that are here, and we're not going to lose this skill base. And this is their home, and it's also a really cool riding destination. So just the whole BC area. So like having a presence up here is cool. But Dustin built a team of people, and this is their home, and so it's going to stay, and we're going to build it. It's going to grow. It's not going to be gutted. Unless we are just absolutely brought to our knees, for other things, and then both facilities will be, will have to happen what has to happen. But I promise you, we'll bust ass and be brought to our knees before we do let anybody down. And we need that trust, and we need the people to feel like, what they're contributing to is long term, and it's going to improve their life for, the entirety of it. And, that's important. And so absolutely, if you gut Kamloops, you lose that spirit. And if you shut down Kamloops, you lose all those people that, brought such good things to the table. So, we are committed, these are our people now, and, we're going to take care of them.
You will, I assume you'll start bringing some stuff over to North Carolina though as well, in terms of like bringing some capabilities, hopefully, as you're learning how to make carbon things.
Yeah, definitely. I want to have some carbon fiber in Asheville just so I can understand it better myself. Mm-hmm. So we'll do some carbon fiber in Asheville, but most of it'll still be in Kamloops. So, and we're going to be developing a lot more products. So, like maybe we'll develop a crank and maybe set the cranks up in Asheville and keep the rims in Kamloops, or maybe, keep the new products in Kamloops and phase some tried and true products to Asheville, while we're learning and getting better and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, these are plans to be had, and big part of this week is to understand everything so we can make better decisions. But
I think you just officially announced.
The key thing is, go ahead.
I think you just officially announced a new crankset that's coming shortly. Cool, that's great. What other things can we get out of you?
Horrible.
Let's just do a blanket announcement that absolutely everything on a bicycle is what we are going to be releasing. Perfect. And I will say that suspension is not in the works. Derailleurs are not in the works, but everything else is. And new Imagine products for it will be on the table as well. Asheville, we've spent a big investment in improving our development team in Asheville, so we already have things like we're making bottom bracket right now. We're making seat post clamps right now. We're working on pedals right now. I mean, it's everything. So, but
it's like
if
an
it's
arms
not
race
good, we're
there.
not going to release it.
Yeah, the arms race right now is like hubs, and everyone's talking about brakes and everything like that, and drivetrain. But we're going to come out with the first wireless brake system. You watch.
Looking forward to it.
Interestingly enough, Dustin, I've actually worked on ideas like that. But it won't be a fail-safe wireless. So
our mission is to reduce to the bike to have 0 cables.
There you go.
An even more complicated headset cable situation. I think that's what the industry wants, right? Sure. That's what consumers want.
But I was asking, didn't work. Let's go through the steer tube.
Yes, even smaller.
Hey, we could 3D print the headset with little oil passages through
it. All of the question was really a setup for me to ask about Arrival 2.0, because that then gets complicated, doesn't it? Obviously, Dustin, you still have some of that still in your heart.
Yeah, so it's like Industry 9 has acquired We Are One. So, We Are One had stopped producing bikes back in early 23. We have continued to support our Arrival ownership group in any way we can possibly with all of the hardware that we did make here and everything like that. But as far as like the carbon components on it go, it's going to be almost impossible for us to move forward with that at this point. And I'm okay in saying that because I know the bikes that everybody has been delivered up to this point have been fantastic, and they will still continue to be fantastic well into the next generation of bikes. But for Industry 9 to enter into that market is just impossible. They have too many OEMs and too many other bike companies they support that it would be I think it would be a massive conflict of interest, and you just can't do it. So that one there, unfortunately, and it just can't move forward. There will be a case-by-case scenario that we'll take and support those customers if we can on the composite side of things. We do have some, inventory stock overruns of like things, like simple things like derailleur hangers and axles and stuff like that, like all the hardware, like we can continue to support those customers in that way. But when it comes down to the composites, I just don't see it coming back to light or becoming something possible for Industry 9 to take on.
I mean, I'm just shooting from the hip here, but like Industry 9 does things for other companies too as a contract thing. Is there a scenario where, whether it's tariff situations or other things in the world, where all of a sudden a bike manufacturer comes and says, hey, we are brand X, we would love it if you guys produce this bike for us, and there's some of the learnings from the Arrival in, like, is that a thing that I'm just throwing something the wall here?
I've learned from doing these podcasts many times, or I never say never to anything, which is awesome because then everybody gets this like window to like wedge in and make up all kinds of stuff. So please use that. But no, I don't know.
Here's your bait, Kaz.
Yeah, exactly. I see that I've had that conversation with other people, should I say, but I do not know how that's going to ever work out. And it's also not up to me to take those decisions anymore. I mean, that would be a Clint decision. And I think we've had a pretty strong understanding of that's not going to be something that we do under the Industry 9 brand.
Well, I'll speak to that a little bit. I mean, there's not a single decision in this company that I make. because it's my decision. So Dustin will, in fact, actually be a large part of that decision.
Okay, let's talk Arrival 2.0, folks.
There we go.
These are things. As a matter of fact, I could really use the industry experts like you guys to talk. So why don't we just start on that? But no, I mean, what I would speak to that would be, just like Dustin said, like at face value, you don't want to go into the bicycle production world because it's going to, or making your own brand of bikes again because, it's competing against your customers. However, we should recognize that we are in a dramatically changing world, and we do not know how this tariff stuff's going to play out. We're not going to know all kinds of things that might happen. Hell, there could be a war. If there's a war, we go into bicycle production because there's not going to be any bicycles in the United States of America. So we basically have to. It would be too good of an opportunity to miss all this other kind of stuff. We don't know what the other OEMs are going to do. We don't know what their health is. Right now, if a bike brand came to us and said, we're having problems with our Asian factory, we're having problems with tariffs, we'd like to look at this. And I know what would happen. We would quote laying up the bike and they'd be like, haha, way too expensive. And the conversation would end right there. But there are things that are going to happen. The dollar could go up and down versus some of these currencies. Their labor rates could start going up. Robotics is a biggie. And, when I think of the future, again, one of the things that really impresses me is if robotics really change the labor formula, we are the group that can take advantage of that because we know how to do things. And so we can make the robots do things. We also are good with automation, building special machines and stuff like that. So we might be able to come up with techniques that bring the cost of production of these things down. And if that does, and then suddenly, we're at a price advantage, then yeah, could we be a big manufacturing facility for, the bike brands to make carbon fiber frames? I mean, that is certainly possible. I will say this, my true dream though is I think all the technology changes that are going to go down with, human neural interfaces and batteries and motors and just all the other things, like I do believe that 20 years from now, the main form of recreation in the mountains might not actually be mountain bikes. And if it's not, I would like for us to be the people who invented that new form of recreation. I am convinced one of these days we're going to strap on a wingsuit with 40-foot wingspan and we're going to go flying around the mountain. And, it's going to have to be power assist. It's going to have to be made out of the most exotic composite materials. And, I hope to do that one of these days.
I want to test it. I want this. I want in on this.
I caution this. I see the look on everyone's face going like, this man's crazy. And I thought the same thing. And then 2 weeks ago or a month ago, I sent him a link. There's a company coming out of China that's made some like cougar suit. And you actually wear it now and you can behave like that and do your thing. And it's all battery powered. And I'm like, okay, you know what? He's right. It's happening.
Dario's been trying to get one of the exoskeleton e-hiker suits sent to him.
Yeah, they canceled the press camp a couple times, but we're trying to get Dario on those electronic legs that they make, like the assist legs.
That's Arc'teryx.
Arc'teryx has one, and then there's another company.
There's another company.
So.
Well, there's another one that I'll find the link. I'll send it to you guys. It is like Arc'teryx on steroids. It's like the Tesla of that like mindset. And there's a full blown like suit you can put on, and you go. Do your thing.
Well, when the I-9 wingsuit comes out, I'm there for the press camp. You just let me know. I'm going to come and fly around. It's going to be great.
Yeah. And, let's be honest, that's a hell of a project. I mean, it might not be in my lifetime that people are using those to fly around, but I hope to set up a company and leave a company that, the next generation of people can do cool things. And, and again, that is kind of at the root of everything we do. We're going to say we put these corporations together to make our lives better. But, part of making your lives better is to have, your dreams to be able to come true. If you have a design and a new way of doing things, to have a group of people that you have a chance to pull that stuff off. And that really makes you feel good. It gives you, especially if you're kind of like the development, geek type person, it's a hell of a world to live in, and it's fun. And, so who knows?
I think I asked
maybe
you
I can
guys
pull it
about,
off, and maybe somebody else will.
Yeah, I asked you guys if you guys knew anybody that would like maybe support a guy making a hypercar. So maybe we found him.
There you go. Yeah.
Maybe,
some good
maybe that's the
collaborations
next
here.
thing is we shift from the bike industry into hypercars and bring Vlad on, and you never know.
Off-road hypercars.
Well, I tell you what,
Hypercar.
that would be like, it's so exciting. But I actually don't have that amount of money yet, but we're about to get it.
All right. Well, this is
you do need money to be able to pull off cool shit,
Yeah,
for sure.
And this feels like this might be a good place to wrap it up. We're kind of at the future, sounding like flying machines and hypercars and all that. I mean, like anything else you want to add on, Brian?
No, I mean, I'm just, hey, Clint and Dustin, thank you guys so much for being transparent in this. This is when I first heard that, We Are One was struggling and was looking for partnership, and then eventually had found partnership, I was super excited that this seems like a great place for you to land, Dustin, and Clint. It seems like a great thing to add to your portfolio. So yeah, honestly, congrats from us.
Thanks.
I have my fingers crossed. I'm excited to see what you guys can make happen. And even if it's not flying suits, I think even on the more incremental side, there's some cool shit you guys can do. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I don't usually get I don't get the platform very often. So if I might, like, I'm going to take this moment to thank some people. We've had a lot of great supporters over the years, customers, vendors, people that got behind the brand. I'm getting emotional talking about it. You can probably hear it, but I just want to say thank you. Without all those people, we wouldn't be here today. So yeah, thanks a lot. It from the bottom of my heart and from everybody here that works here, it means a lot to us.
Awesome. Well, thanks for both of you for being on this, and we're excited to see what's next, and we'll stay tuned. Yeah, I appreciate it as always.
Stoked.
Hell yeah.